Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with the eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Benny Keith is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Greetings, everybody out there in podcast land, and welcome to Heaping Spoonful. I'm your host, Kelly Bass, and I'm honored to get a chance to visit with some of the outstanding chefs and restaurateurs from across the Mid-South. I'm a foodie by nature, like most of you listening, I'm sure, and back in the olden days, I wrote dining reviews for Little Rock newspapers. Now, you got to remember, this is pre-internet, so it's definitely pre-Yelp, pre-TripAdvisor. And you know, I and the guy at the other newspaper were the only two people that got a chance to tell folks what we thought about restaurants. And it's pretty incredible difference now when everybody's a critic. Today, I am happy to welcome Chef Kelly English to Heaping Spoonful. Hello, Kelly. You know, we male Kellys have to stick together because the female Kellys outnumber us so badly. Like most chefs and restaurants, you know it. I know that's the case.
I know what you went through growing up. I get it.
I know. And well, in first grade, there were 5 Kellys in my class, 4 girls and me. So I guess it was a pretty popular name about that time. And, you know, like most chefs and restaurateurs, and you're both, your story's an interesting one, but not unlike others we've been able to tell here on Heaping Spoonful. So your love for the restaurant world sounds like it started when you were a student at Ole Miss in the very foodie-friendly town of Oxford. Tell us about your first restaurant experience and the fact that was transformative for you.
Yeah, man. I grew up in New Orleans, and I went to Ole Miss. I was a pre-law major, and I got a job at this place called Cedars. It was a catfish frying restaurant, and they were famous for their hamburger steaks. And my first job, I was a busboy, a dishwasher, and a catfish filleter. And from there, you really had to make a choice. If you were going to move up, you were either going to go in the front of the house or the back of the house. And the guys in the back of the house seemed to have more fun, in my opinion, than the guys in the front of the house, even though they made more money. So I went to the back of the house, and I really like the idea of making people smile for a living. That's really what got me about this. Also, you know, I have a very large dose of ADD, and it was the first thing in my life that I had ever started doing and looked up, and it was just 4 hours later out of nowhere. I didn't know what that felt like. You know, my dad was a lawyer. I love the idea of being pre-law. I thought that was what I was going to do, and I can still argue with you logically, but I'm glad that I get to cook food instead of argue for a living.
Well, you know, I thought I was going to be a lawyer too, and my wife will tell you I'm good at being very logical and very argumentative for sure. So you grew up in Louisiana, is that correct? Or not?
Yeah, I grew up in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
That is correct. I grew up going to bars in New Orleans starting when I was about 15 years old, because that's what you do, or at least that's what you did in New Orleans.
Sure.
And it's a great place to grow up.
Oh, and particularly if you to develop your foodie tendencies. So working at the restaurant, which I love a great hamburger steak, it usually has to have sauteed onions where I'm concerned, and of course catfish is the southern staple. For sure. Did you pretty much have to go and say, hey, Dad, I love that you're a lawyer, and you know I'm having a good time here in Oxford, and I really think I don't want to be a lawyer. I think I want to go into the restaurant world, or did you just come to that decision?
I was super nervous about that conversation, actually.
Of course you were.
I had gone to Spain to study Spanish for 6 months, and I got a job when I was working over there, and that's really what did it for me, was to work over there. And you know, you say growing up in New Orleans is a great place to develop your foodie, your love for food, and it is, but you don't realize it when you're there. Like when you're a kid,
sure.
and you're just surrounded by a culture like that, you take it for granted. And it was leaving it, and not just leaving it, but going to a place like Spain where it was just as important but different than the one that I grew up with was really eye-opening to me. And but yeah, I came back and I was so nervous about telling my dad. And, when I look back, my dad used to come home from work, and the way he'd relax was he would cook.
Yeah.
If he had a bad day, he cooked hard. And if he had a good day, he cooked gleefully. And so it's kind of still by his example that I wanted to, ultimately do this. And when I told him, he was just really relieved that I was not going to be a lawyer.
Sure.
Because, it's in his eyes, it's not all it's cracked up to be, for sure.
Yeah. Well, my dad was a CPA, and he advised me against that as well. And I certainly didn't do it. So I guess the logical step was that, I need to get some formal training. I've worked in the restaurant, but I need to go to culinary school. So you went to Culinary Institute of America, which is the renowned there's a lot of great culinary schools. So is that just something you saw as a necessary step, kind of like taking calculus in school, or did you learn things there that are still important to the way you operate in a kitchen?
I learned a lot at both. I saw CIA as the best, and I wanted to go learn from those instrucors. And, there's something to be said for not going to school and cutting your teeth. And there's something to be said for going to school and learning everything very quickly that you can. I think the thing that you get the most out of culinary school is words, or our words.
Right.
You know what the words mean when the chef says what needs to be done. You can put about 4 sentences into one word sometimes. And I think that just like with any school, you get out of it exactly what you put into it. And I went up there, and I was a little bit older than everybody else. I'd already been to college. I'd graduated. And I really treated CIA like medical school. I was spending my own money on it that I was borrowing from the government, and I was going to do the best I could. I was going to give it my all every day. And if you knew me as an undergrad, you would be shocked to know that I didn't miss a single class the whole time I was in culinary school, because I just loved it. I really did. Sure. And I thought that, you got the opportunity to learn from 20 chefs as opposed to one. You should take advantage of it. And, I loved it up there. I loved going to live in a different part of the country that I hadn't been in before. I think that's something that gives you perspective and is great, man. It's great. It's cold in the winter.
Yeah, definitely. So I saw again that you got to work. I know you were in Spain for studying when you were in college, and you also worked in France. Was that part of your culinary school? Was that like an internship or a placement, or was it related to culinary school?
No, I went with the restaurant that I was working for in New Orleans, Restaurant August. We did a series of events in France over a few weeks, and so got to go over there and work a little bit in a place called the Chateau Monceau, and which is in a town called Bagnols-sur-Cèze, right near Avignon. Mm-hmm. And that was awesome. I'll never forget, aside from seeing the actual scenes of and the foods of South France, but the mayonnaise that they sell over there commercially, holy Lord, that mayonnaise is like yellow. It's so good.
I've had it. My sister
so good
lived in Paris for 35 years, and I've stayed in Avignon a couple of times, and Provence. Yeah, it's fabulous. Yeah. So again, your first gig out of culinary school is working for John Besh in New Orleans, which again, Restaurant August. I've gotten to eat there. I had lunch, and at the time they were doing a fixed price, and it was whatever year it was is what it cost. So at this point, it was like it was like $20.14 or something, and it was an amazing 3-course meal. I thought it was ostensibly free compared to what. How did you get such a sweet gig as your first job out of culinary school? I mean, obviously you're from New Orleans, so
I did my right.
Yeah,
I did an externship halfway through CIA. You do an externship with for I think it's 18 weeks, and I did mine at Restaurant August, and it's kind of interesting. It was a meal at Restaurant August that made me decide for sure that I wanted to be a chef. And I had their gnocchi with crab and truffle. And I remember eating that dish and saying, man, if I can learn how to do this with potatoes, then I am in. Like, this is amazing. And I've always been very, very, very proud to have been able to work in the restaurant where I really decided that I wanted to be a chef because of one dish.
No doubt.
And I made that dish a lot.
Yeah, that's oh man, that sounds great. And so then again, we're kind of going in career progression. So that led you to work in I guess at a casino with a best concept restaurant in Tunica. Am I right about that? And I guess lived in Memphis and drove down to work.
That's right. And so I moved up here right before Hurricane Katrina. The idea was that I was going to be up here for 2 weeks, and then I was supposed to move to Germany for a year for training under a chef that John had worked for. And Katrina hit, and everything changed, and I stayed for 2 years in Tunica running that restaurant for him. And then I moved back to New Orleans to help open Luke and La Provence, two of his other restaurants. And about 9 months into Luke being open, I came across a restaurant that was for sale in Memphis, and that's how I ended up here.
Wow! And what was?
And I wasn't looking to leave. I was very. What was the what?
So was the restaurant? I mean, you changed the whole concept, changed the names. It was just a facility. You didn't like take over an existing restaurant and just run it like it was. I'm guessing.
I did.
Oh, you did.
Well, correct. It was a restaurant called La Tourelle.
Okay.
Which was a bastion of fine dining in Memphis for years. The owners had run it for, I think, 25 years, maybe 30. I can't remember which one. And so I have always felt really lucky to be able to take over at least an address that was so well known for being, on the forefront of cuisine in Memphis. And we've been here, 12 years now.
Wow. And so but you're still fine dining, but did you change the concept? I mean, did you know pretty much, being from New Orleans and working,
yeah.
You knew what kind of food you knew what you were going to serve when you opened your first restaurant.
Yeah. I wanted to serve true fine dining meals that you would find in New Orleans that were meant for locals in New Orleans. That's what I wanted to serve. Not a tourist or an outsider's version of what New Orleans dining was. And it's so funny, like I came here and that's what I wanted to do. And, when people would ask me right when I got here, where am I from? I would say, well, I'm from New Orleans, but I have restaurants in Memphis and I live in Memphis. And now I just say I'm from Memphis.
Yeah.
To me, I'm a Memphian now.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud to be that.
Yeah, well, that's great, and it again, I know a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into opening the restaurant, running the restaurant, but it's you've certainly you and your restaurants have gotten a lot of recognition and honors, and I know you were named Best New Chef by Food and Wine magazine. You were featured in that one in Bon Appetit. You've been a James Beard semifinalist, which is quite an honor. Again, I know all that's flattering, but I hopefully also, as with the internet like it is, hopefully that has sent a lot of people your way because they learned about it from seeing some of the accolades that you've gotten.
Oh, for sure. Now Iris, we only have 10 tables. It's a very small restaurant.
Okay.
It's in an old home. Yeah, it was a home that was built in 1917. But yeah, especially that Food and Wine Best in Chef Award, when that thing hit, it was like a whole different ball game for us.
Sure.
We were busy every day of the week, and with area codes on the reservations that we had to look up to see where's that area code from, and it was really something. I'll tell you that.
That is really that's fabulous, well deserved, I know, but still, yeah. And also, Memphis is right on Interstate 40, so people traveling east to west across the United States of America. You're going to get some traffic of people just like we're going through Memphis around dinner time. Where should we eat? Well, with 10 tables, I would imagine if one wants a reservation, you need to kind of move on that, which is really cool. Hey, listen, I appreciate everybody listening today to Heaping Spoonful with our guest, Kelly English, owner, chef at Restaurant Iris and The Second Line, two of Memphis's renowned and beloved restaurants. So if you'll hang on just for a minute, we'll be right back.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Kelly Bass.
All right, folks, welcome back to Heaping Spoonful. I'm Kelly Bass, your host. My guest is another male Kelly, Kelly English of Restaurant Iris and the Second Line, which are next door neighbors near Overton Square, or just right off Overton Square in Midtown Memphis. And we've talked about this already. So you knew, I mean, again, you worked with John Best, you worked with, been to France, had been to Spain, but you're a New Orleans guy, and so you knew what you'd serve. Is it pretty much the menu stayed? You said you've been open, I guess, 12 years. Has it pretty much stayed the same, or have you transitioned quite a bit over those years?
Oh, no. It's, I remember back in the early days when we first opened, we aggressively changed the menu as often as we could. And then, after a couple of years, there were a few standards that we came by, that we kept on there, but we continued to evolve. And then 2 or 3 years ago, we renovated the restaurant and we got rid of everything that we had been doing for years. Totally changed what we were doing and took a real look at what Southern food was currently, not just in the history books or what people said it was, like who lives here now. And, since, in the last few months, I've really gotten to do a lot of reflecting as to why do we do what we do? How do we do it? And what does it mean? And, we have gone back to a lot of the things that we started out doing. And that could be from comfort. That could be from, wanting something familiar in the world. And, that we don't know what's going to happen day to day as to what regulations are or whatnot. But it's been a lot of fun to do some of those dishes and to see people really excited to see them back.
Yeah, that's great. I know a lot of folks in the business, and changing a menu can be a dicey proposition when you take something off that somebody loved. But I mean, you do have to evolve for sure. So tell us about the second.
It's weird though, Well, no, it's weird. We earned our reputation as a restaurant that changed its menu constantly. And then we got to a place where we couldn't change anything on the menu because it meant something to everyone. And it's just kind of weird how restaurants go through different parts of their life and like that. It felt like it was a teenager,
Sure.
Wanted to be who it wanted to be, and everybody wanted to be something else.
True. So tell us, you say you've been open 12 years there at Restaurant Iris, and then when did you open the Second Line?
Second Line is 7 years old, and it's funny because I still think of it as brand new.
Yeah, well, relatively.
And 7 years is a while too. But Second Line is a true representation of a casual New Orleans restaurant and bar that you would find there. Okay. So I think that the further you get away from New Orleans, the worse po' boys get. And the reason, I think, is twofold. I think people use the wrong bread.
Right.
We fly our bread in from New Orleans for that. And I think that people try to put their own spin on it too much. And when you go to New Orleans, no matter what po' boy shop you go to, you can order a roast beef, you can order a shrimp po' boy, an oyster po' boy, debris. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter. It's got mayonnaise, lettuce, tomato, pickle on it. Yep. It doesn't have horseradish aioli on it. It doesn't even have a remoulade on it. You might be able to order that on the side. So that is what we've kind of stuck to. We don't try to put our fingerprints on what a po' boy should be. We make real po' boys, and I love them. I gained about 30 pounds when we first opened because I finally had the po' boys I wanted at my fingertips.
Right.
And I'm glad to have dropped those 30 pounds by now. But
that's not easy to do, particularly in your business.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
no, it's not.
So was that also a former restaurant that just became available, or did you create a restaurant out of something that wasn't?
Yeah, it was a dialysis clinic. So we knew it was clean.
Yes.
And it was next door to Restaurant Iris on the corner. So Restaurant Iris and the Second Line share one physical kitchen, but two separate lines to cook with. And so they're next door to each other, so we can be omnipresent in both restaurants.
So but you say they share a kitchen?
It's very, very convenient.
I don't see how two different.
They do share a kitchen, so we have two separate cook lines. We have a front line and a back line, and the kitchen that Iris had was ginormous. It was way too big for a 10-table restaurant. We could fit both things in there. And the funny thing is, it sounds really convenient, and it is, But before, when Iris was operating, it was silent in the kitchen. It was almost like you could hear a pin drop besides, pots and pans rattling around. And second line is just a different ball game. It's loud, it's raucous. There's a lot more communication that needs to take place. So it's almost like trying to have a symphony and a punk rock show on the same stage at the same time. And we mentioned my ADD earlier. Sometimes I've got to walk out of the room for just a quick second because there's so much stuff happening in that kitchen at one time.
Yeah, that sounds cool. That really is. And again, I know there have to be some efficiencies and conveniences by being right there. If you need to borrow something, you got your big kitchen. And then there's the Magnolia House, which is in the Harrah's Casino in Biloxi. Tell us about how you got involved in that project.
Yeah, so it's right down the road from where I grew up. My parents live about 45 minutes away from there. And, I had developed a relationship with Harrah's when I worked for them at the Horseshoe and Tunica under John Besh. Right. And they had a restaurant that had a space that they needed some help with, and they called me, and I'm really proud of all the work we get to do down there. Biloxi is an underrated market as far as food and as far as a destination for both dining and leisure. Yeah. And so I get to go down there once a month, get to see my parents once a month when I'm down there too, and I get to cook some food where most of the food comes from right across the street in the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh man, yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, that is great. So that sounds like the best of all worlds, in that you're I'm sure it is your vision and your food, but you don't have to be there to cook it every day, but you get to go do it when you want to do it once a month, and also working a trip to see the parents. So that is totally cool. So what are I would imagine that casino has multiple restaurants, but what are the challenges and opportunities of having a restaurant in a casino as opposed to just having a standalone restaurant?
Well, obviously a casino has a different level of resources. Some of them make things easier and some of them don't. You can't, in a casino, you can't just change things on a whim. There's several levels that need to happen. A lot of different people that have to do their job to make sure that things happen just like you would in a big company. But we can do things that other places can't. The partnership between Harrah's and I lets us really look at the menus that we have and invest locally into the suppliers, the fishermen that work down there, and to really look at what is a Gulf Coast restaurant, what should it serve, what do our guests want, and it's just a ton of fun. I love getting to go down there and to Harrah's Gulf Coast, and they've just redone their hotel, and we get to do some of the room service for it. Oh, wow. And it's it's been a ton of fun. Good. Yeah, but a different type of challenge for sure.
And I think, I think people might have misconceptions about casino restaurants that, everybody thinks about the breakfast buffet or the whatever, and there's something to be said for that in the market that has to be served. But there's some fine dining in casinos without a doubt. And clearly your
well, let me tell you, casinos are really going to have to look at the way that they do food service, because the way that what you just mentioned I think is a dinosaur. It's dead after COVID. I don't think that we're going to see a buffet again for a while.
No, that's for sure.
Especially with shared utensils and things like that. So there's going to be a lot about, ancillary parts of business or direct parts of business that are going to have to really take a look at. And I think that there's a lot of, and not just in casinos, but in private or small, not private, but small business, mom and pop restaurants, we're really going to have to take a look. As we take a hit on a lot of costs. We eat a lot of things in restaurants in the name of hospitality. And I think that we're going to have to really look at those things on the other side of this and say, what's healthy for the business? Not just what is a free service that we can provide as an amenity to our guests.
Yeah.
While keeping a level of hospitality alive. The spirit of hospitality will never change, but there will be some things that, we're going to have to do differently on the other side of this. And that's going to be a fun challenge.
Yeah. It's, it's also uncertain. And for those listening, whenever they're listening, we're recording this episode of Heaping Spoonful in mid-July 2020. and the coronavirus pandemic continues to rage, particularly in the South and the West. So what was the scenario for your restaurants in Memphis related to the onset, and then now that we're trying to figure out our path forward?
Well, we were the first restaurant to close our dining room in Memphis, and maybe even in Tennessee. We closed on a Monday, and the edict to close dining rooms did not come down until a Friday. It was in mid-March.
Yep.
And we went directly to a model where we were delivering vacuum sealed and chilled foods to people's homes. Wow. You could pick them up, you could get delivery, but having worked for a company that was part of the FEMA relief for Hurricane Katrina and some other things, I got to see how crises in fine dining restaurants were handled. And I paid close attention to that, and we were really aggressive with what we did. We went very swiftly. And by doing that, we got to preserve, a lot more jobs than other restaurants got to, I think.
So but at some point you've been able to reopen your in-house dining?
Yeah, we've been reopened for about a month, and it's been the first week we were open, it was good. The second 2 weeks, it was not good. It's hot. People don't necessarily want to eat inside, and a lot of people are on vacation. So we're trying to figure out what it is that we can do internally to mitigate and change those things. But it's a new world. I don't know if it's a brave new world, but we've got to be brave in the new world. And the unfortunate thing about everything that's going on right now is that, as a small business restaurant owner, we've been through the ringer. We've been told to shut down. We've been told to open up. We've been told to be contact tracers. We've been told to make sure that people wear masks, and I'm down with all that. But the problem that we face is that everything in this world right now is turned into politics, and even things that have no business being turned into politics are somehow done that. And we've been through enough. We don't need for a cheeseburger to become political.
No, I know. Or
we just need to be able to sell a cheeseburger and survive. Right, exactly.
A piece of cloth has become the symbol of you're stomping on my liberties. But anyway, well, let's talk something a little happier. Right. So again, I can't imagine a better background and work experience and travel experience for somebody that later would open his own restaurants than what you had. But as you look back on what you learned before you had your own restaurants and now that you have for years, what would you say the guiding principles are that you have made you successful? And what do you feel like you've done right in terms of the overall operation of your restaurants?
Sure. I'll tell you a few things that I think we've done right and some things we've done wrong. How about that?
Perfect.
I think that one of the things that we've done right is we have intentionally tried not to create a stress factory in our restaurants. And we believe that we can achieve having the best restaurant that we possibly can by making it a great place to work. That's been the number one goal of us since before we opened our doors. We haven't always achieved it, but we've tried to every day. And I take very, very much pride in the fact that people like to work here. I mean, our first restaurant or our first crew that we had working here, when we opened the restaurant 8 years later, only one person was a different employee than it was when we opened.
That's great.
That's front of the house, back of the house, everything. Yeah. It was truly an amazing thing, and I owe a lot to those people. The one thing that I think that we didn't do too well, and we got really lucky, was that when we first opened, our major emphasis was everything about what can we do during service to do this and do this and do this, and we did not pay as close of attention to the actual running of a business that we should have. Mm-hmm. And we got really lucky because things just worked out right. And I'll tell everyone that's listening that is thinking about opening a restaurant is that that should be the number one thing you pay attention to is the actual running of the business. Our margins are so razor thin that if you put yourself in any type of hole to begin with, it's so difficult to pull yourself out of. And I was very lucky with the people that we had working here. And like you said, we had some great accolades, and some of them came early that really helped us get through a lot of the hard times.
Yeah, and I have a really good friend here in Little Rock who is a chef, but he says the reason his restaurants are successful is because he knows how to run a business. He said, there's the annals of dead restaurants is littered with a lot of really, really great chefs who didn't know how to run a business, and it's just the fact of the matter.
That's true. Very, very true.
Yeah, the bio on your restaurant's website mentions sort of in passing your love of college football. I too am a huge fan, as well as a recovering journalist who at one point in my, besides reviewing restaurants, I was a sports columnist, so I got to cover a lot of cool sports. Tell us about college football.
Who's your team?
It's got to be the Arkansas Razorbacks. I'm in Arkansas, and I used to cover them. And I remember back when I remember when they used to be good. I also remember when they beat LSU at Baton Rouge the year LSU ended up, after losing to Darren McFadden, ended up coming back and winning the national championship.
Darren McFadden had a hell of a game.
Oh, man. It was great.
That was, we so I went to Ole Miss. We inherited Houston Nutt from y'all. And, I will tell you that being an Ole Miss fan has really, really grown what my dad would call getting some character. And we've been handed some real heartbreakers by the Razorbacks in particular. 4th and 25. I remember where I was to watch that.
The Henry Heave.
Henry but there's
I know.
Y'all, and then the next couple of years was the same way when we had Chad Kelly. Like, it came down to the end and we couldn't do it. And I remember watching 7 OTs with Eli Manning on our side, and what was the quarterback that y'all had?
Matt Jones.
Yeah, that was the day he came out. I think that game he did not start, but he came in for overtime, and man,
I know
that was nuts.
I know. Oh, it's Razorbacks too. I mean, I tell people, Ole Miss has had ups and downs. There were some great times under Hugh Freeze, and then of course the Hugh Freeze kind of blew up, and But I mean, and again, who knows if we're going to have it? I kind of doubt we do. By the time somebody's listening to this, they'll know the answer to that question. But anyway, it's the religion of the South. It's the unifying factor. I mean, tailgating before an Ole Miss game or tailgating for a Razorback game, all of a sudden, it doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, black, white, Christian, not, whatever. We're all in it for the football. So that's cool. Well, listen, thank you so much, Kelly. I really, it does my heart good. It does my stomach good to know your 2 Memphis restaurants are a pretty easy 2-hour drive from my house. And so I will find you. I'll introduce myself. And I applaud you for not messing up the good things. I mean, you're talking about New Orleans po' boys, and they don't get any better. And I've learned, it's interesting. I've been to Central Grocery. I've had a muffaletta there. I've also pulled into a little convenience store and had a muffaletta that was pretty dadgum good, because you can't sell a bad muffaletta in New Orleans like you can't sell a bad cheesesteak in Philadelphia. So,
that's right.
Yeah. So congratulations on all you're doing. And listen, I thank everybody who's listening to this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We put these up every other Tuesday. So check out the ones you've missed and look for some new ones. And thanks a lot, everybody.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Benny Keith Foods, Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another Heaping Spoonful.